Matthew chapter 9, verse 1 to 13. Two stories in today's reading. Jesus forgives and heals a paralyzed man, and Jesus calls Matthew, the tax collector, to follow him and to be his disciple. I just want to highlight a few details from these readings, and then I want to compare these two stories. And firstly, here's a man in desperate need, but unable to access Jesus for himself. So his friends bring him to Jesus, and Jesus responds to the faith of the man's friends. For me, this speaks of the power of being in community with a few Christian friends, people who can carry you and bring you before the Lord in faith in those times, those times that we feel like we cannot do it ourselves, like we're stuck, like we're unable to believe ourselves for the breakthrough, but also to be that friend to others, to carry others into the presence of Jesus. We need each other. Secondly, Jesus deals with this man's biggest need first. He forgives his sins. He calls him son. He uses a relational family term. Both these stories then expose the hearts of the religious leaders of the day. They were so proud that they were the sons of Abraham, the sons of God, and they had come to believe that, if you were sick, if you were suffering, that was God's punishment upon you. God had rejected you. But here is Jesus affirming this man and healing him on the inside and on the outside, a spiritual and physical restoration. And maybe today you need that healing physically. And I'd encourage you to ask God and to seek God for that healing, to continue to do that. But also to share that with just a few trusted friends, to invite them into that, to ask them to join you in prayer, to believe God with you and for you to receive that healing, either in the here and now, in the present, or in the life to come, because we know that Jesus has given us the greater healing of a transformed heart, forgiveness. Jesus then calls Matthew the tax collector from his little tax booth and goes and has dinner with Matthew in his house along with all of his sinner friends. Basically, as a tax collector, Matthew was working for the Romans. He was collecting high taxes from an oppressed poor people under enemy occupation. So tax collectors were despised. And Jesus, the holiest person to ever walk this planet, he made space for sinners, for outsiders, for the outcast. He spent time with them. And I pray that we too would live and love like Jesus in this way, that we would eat with those who don't know Jesus, who perhaps don't even feel that they could be part of a church or a religious community. Part of what it means to be like Jesus is to be a friend of sinners. I think these two stories in this passage are clearly intended by Matthew to mirror each other from the language he uses. And I think it's important to note that both the paralyzed man and Matthew were looked down upon by society. Both were called to get up. It says of both, they got up. Both were called to leave something behind, one a mat, the other a tax booth. And both are sent onto something. They mirror each other. And what I love about that, when I reflect on my own life, my own story, my own testimony of how Jesus called me, it isn't dramatic and exciting. When you hear about people's dramatic healings and they encountered God, or they were saved from being a drug dealer or whatever story, but it is my story. This same Jesus saves one from sickness and the other from just a mundane life in a little tax booth. He calls both of them and gives purpose to both of them. One story is quite extraordinary and dramatic, the other's quite ordinary. But the lives of both the paralyzed man and the tax collector are changed forever. And so I pray that you would take opportunities today to share your story of how you encountered Jesus and how that encounter led to you being forgiven and healed and restored and given a life of greater purpose and meaning. And I pray as you do so, you'll have great joy in that. Amen.